Small towns are supposed to be safe. The kind of places where kids ride bikes until sundown, neighbors wave from porches, and locked doors feel unnecessary. But what happens when that comfort is ripped apart in a single horrifying moment? Imagine the silence of a summer night, interrupted only by crickets until a scream echoes across the fields. The next morning, the whole town is forever changed. These aren't stories from big cities where crime is routine. These are real-life nightmares that shattered tight-knit communities, where everyone knew each other, yet no one could explain the horror. Tonight, we're walking into the heart of darkness, through church-lined streets and overgrown trails, to uncover 10 haunting, unsolved murders that happened in small towns and still haunt them to this day. Let's begin. Number 1. Jessica Chambers, Cortland, Mississippi, the girl on fire. It was a quiet December night in 2014 when first responders arrived on a rural road outside Cortland. What they found was something out of a horror movie. 19-year-old Jessica Chambers was stumbling away from her car, engulfed in flames. Her pajamas melted into her skin. She had burns on 95% of her body. As she struggled to speak, she reportedly whispered to responders, "Eric did this to me." Those words launched a storm of speculation that still hasn't settled. Jessica was known as bubbly and kind. Her death was as gruesome as it was mysterious. Authorities quickly focused on Quentin Tellis, a man she'd only recently met. But despite 2 trials, Tellis was never convicted. The case ended in mistrials. Years later, Jessica's memory is honored with candles and vigils, but the truth remains buried. Who set her on fire and why? No one knows. Number 2. B-Low Supermarket Massacre, Windsor, North Carolina. The killer who showed mercy Windsor, North Carolina, is the kind of town where families have lived for generations, where Sunday church and high school football games are cornerstones of community life. But everything changed on the night of June 6, 1993, when the B-Low Supermarket became the stage for a massacre that would haunt the town forever. As the store closed for the evening, 6 employees prepared for their final tasks. That's when a man entered, not to shop, but to slaughter. He pulled a weapon, took all 6 hostage, and methodically bound them with duct tape. Then, with chilling precision, he arranged them in piles, like discarded cargo, and opened fire. 3 young workers were murdered. 2 were left with life-altering injuries. 1 man, inexplicably, was spared. Before the shooter vanished into the night, he looked at the unharmed employee and said, "Today's your lucky day. I'm gonna let you live, big man." The survivor gave police a clear description: a black male, between 30 and 35, with a narrow bridged nose. The killer walked away with just $3,300, leading many to believe this wasn't about money. It was about control, power, and inflicting pain. Despite an FBI profile and a $30,000 reward, the murderer was never identified. No suspects, no arrests. Just a tight-knit town left with trauma, unanswered questions, and a chilling sense that the killer might have been someone they passed every day. Windsor still remembers, not just the crime, but the terrifying fact that some ghosts don't vanish. They just go quiet. Number 3. The Girl Scout Murders. Mays County, Oklahoma summer camp should be a place of joy. Campfires, ghost stories, and lifelong friendships. That was the dream in June 1977, when dozens of young girls arrived at Camp Scott in Mays County, Oklahoma. Among them were Lori Farmer, 8, Michelle Goose, 9, and Denise Milner, 10, 3 bright, eager Girl Scouts just beginning what was supposed to be the time of their lives. On their first night, the girls wrote letters to their families, talked excitedly about the days ahead, and settled into their tent. But by morning, a counselor stumbled upon a horrifying sight. The 3 girls had been raped, bludgeoned, and strangled. Their bodies were found in their sleeping bags, dumped a short distance from their tent. The camp was evacuated and permanently shut down. The peace of Mays County was shattered. Authorities quickly focused on Jean Leroy Hart, a convicted rapist who had escaped prison and had been hiding in the nearby woods. Circumstantial evidence tied him to the scene, including a single Native American hair and stolen items. But when the case went to trial, Hart was acquitted. He died of a heart attack in prison shortly after. For over 4 decades, no one else has been charged. The DNA evidence has degraded, the trail's gone cold, and yet the case still lingers like a storm cloud over Oklahoma. To this day, the murder of the 3 Girl Scouts remains one of the most disturbing unsolved crimes in American history. A crime that stole not just 3 innocent lives, but an entire generation's sense of security. Camp Scott never reopened, and the tent where the girls slept remains empty. a symbol of innocence lost and a question that may never be answered. Who killed Lori, Michelle, and Denise, and why? Number 4. The Investor Boat Murders. Craig, Alaska. Craig, Alaska, a small coastal town where the ocean isn't just scenery, it's survival. Fishing is the heartbeat of this community. But on September 7, 1982, the peaceful rhythm was broken by an inferno that lit up the harbor and left the town reeling. The Investor, a $750,000 state-of-the-art fishing boat owned by skipper Mark Coulthurst, was found burning just offshore. Once the flames were finally extinguished, the grim discovery was made. All 8 people aboard, Mark, his pregnant wife Irene, their children Kimberly, 5, and John, 4, and 4 young deckhands, had been murdered before the boat was torched. At first, investigators believed it might have been an accident, but it was soon clear this was a calculated execution. Someone had methodically killed 8 people and set the boat ablaze to destroy evidence. Suspicion eventually fell on John Peel, a former employee of Coulthurst. He had a history with the family, and some claimed he harbored resentment. Peel was arrested and stood trial not once, but twice. Both trials ended without conviction. He walked free, and no one else has ever been charged. With no fingerprints, no witnesses, and no clear motive, the case remains Alaska's most notorious unsolved mass murder. To this day, it baffles law enforcement and haunts Craig. There are whispers in the bars and stories passed around by fishermen, speculations about rivalries, drugs, revenge. But the truth, lost somewhere in that fiery night, adrift in the cold waters of Southeast Alaska. Locals say on quiet nights you can still smell the smoke, and maybe, just maybe, hear the ghosts of the Investor, calling for justice that never came. Number 5. The Delphi Murders. Delphi, Indiana. Delphi, Indiana is the kind of town where kids can roam free, a place where people don't just know your name, they know your grandparents. So when 13-year-old Abigail Abby Williams and 14-year-old Liberty Libby German disappeared during a walk on the Monon High Bridge Trail in February 2017, the entire town went into panic. The girls had been dropped off by Libby's sister around 1:30 p.m. on February 13th. By evening, when they failed to return, a search party was formed. Their bodies were found the next day, less than a mile from where they were last seen. But this wasn't just another tragic murder case. What made this crime chillingly unique was the clue Libby had the presence of mind to record. On her phone, she captured a grainy video of a man approaching them on the trail. And in the audio, just 3 words, "Guys down the hill." Authorities believe those were the killer's words, his voice, his image. Yet years passed with no arrest. In 2022, Richard Allen, a local man, was arrested and charged with the girls' murders. Prosecutors claim new evidence ties him to the crime, but no trial has begun and no confession has come. As of now, the case technically remains unresolved. For many, Libby's bravery was an act of heroism. She may have filmed her own killer to help others find him. Yet even with that haunting video, justice remains painfully out of reach. The case has captured national attention, inspired podcasts, documentaries, and endless theories. But for Delphi, it's not about fame. It's about 2 young lives taken too soon and a community frozen in time, still waiting for answers. Number 6. The Kunz family murders. Athens, Wisconsin, 4 dead. 1 missing, 1 guilty. Athens, Wisconsin, July 4th, 1987. Fireworks exploded in the sky while a family was silently slaughtered below. 4 members of the Kunz family were found dead in their farmhouse. Marie, Irene, Clarence, and Randy. Their mother Helen was missing. 9 months later, her body was found in a swamp. Christopher Jacobs III, a former business partner, was charged, then acquitted. Years later, he was convicted for Helen's kidnapping. Still, the murders remain unsolved. The farmhouse has long been abandoned. But ask anyone in Athens. They'll tell you that even the silence there feels haunted. Number 7. The Clutter family murders. Holcomb, Kansas. The crime that changed crime writing. November 15, 1959. Holcomb, Kansas. 4 members of the Clutter family were murdered in their home by 2 drifters, Richard Hickok and Perry Smith, who believed a safe full of cash was hidden inside. They found nothing. Still, they executed Herb, his wife Bonnie, and their children Nancy and Kenyon. The killers were caught and hanged. But the crime's legacy lived on through Truman Capote's groundbreaking book In Cold Blood, which immortalized Holcomb in literary history. Justice was served, but the scar remains. A crime so senseless it shattered the soul of a town and redefined America's understanding of evil. Number 8. Ken McElroy, Skidmore, Missouri. The bully no one, Mrs. Ken McElroy was Skidmore's boogeyman, a violent bully with over 20 criminal indictments, assaults, arson, theft, but always walked free. Until one summer day in 1981, when he was shot dead while sitting in his truck, in broad daylight, surrounded by 30 townspeople. Not one person testified, not one name given. The murder remains unsolved. To this day, it's seen as an act of vigilante justice, a community pushed too far. But it also leaves a haunting question. When justice fails, what takes its place? Number 9. The Jamison family disappearance. Eufaula, Oklahoma, vanished without a sound. In October 2009, Bobby Sherilyn and their 6-year-old daughter, Madison Jamison, disappeared from their truck. It was found abandoned on a dirt road. Inside, their IDs, phones, and $32,000 in cash. Even their dog was still there, alive, but starving. 3 years later, their skeletal remains were found just 3 miles away. No cause of death, no evidence, no suspects. Theories abound. Murder, suicide, cult involvement, even paranormal activity. But the facts remain elusive, as does the truth. It's as if the Jamisons simply dissolved into the mist. Number 10. The murder of Gregory Villemin, Vosges, France. I have taken vengeance. October 16, 1984. 4-year-old Gregory Villemin was found bound and drowned in a river near his home in rural France. But the horror didn't start that day. It had been building for years. His parents had received anonymous letters and calls threatening revenge. After the murder, a letter arrived. I have taken vengeance. Gregory's father later killed a family member he believed responsible. His mother was accused, then exonerated. DNA tests were inconclusive. A family feud? A jealous relative? No one knows. France was gripped. The case tore the Villemin family apart. Today, Gregory's grave remains decorated with toys, but the truth remains buried. It's easy to think of small towns as safe havens, but evil doesn't need a city skyline to strike. Sometimes it hides behind white picket fences and in fields that seem too quiet. These stories aren't just cold cases, they're open wounds. Each one a reminder that horror can live next door. And sometimes it never leaves. If any of these stories stayed with you, if they made you think, made you feel, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more true crime deep dives, and don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an episode. And tell me in the comments, which of these cases haunted you the most?